Every time America recovers, it eventually crashes again. And if you've lived long enough, you've seen this pattern play out more times than you can count. Bread lines in the 1930s, gas shortages in the 1970s, Wall Street in free fall during the 2008 collapse, and stimulus checks in 2021, arriving in mailboxes as prices quietly spiraled upward. But here's the part almost no one realizes. These moments aren't random. They follow rules. Rules shaped not by presidents or policymakers, but by two men who never met, yet spent their lives arguing over how a nation should survive chaos. Before we dive in, let me confirm something for you. If you click this video wondering why America keeps booming, then crashing, you're in the right place. And what you're about to hear isn't the usual surface-level explanation. This story goes deeper, back to the ideas that still control every recovery, every recession, and every dollar in your pocket today. Because what I've found, after looking at more than a century of economic crises, is that the reason America keeps repeating the same painful cycle isn't because markets malfunction. It's because the country has spent decades trapped between two opposing visions. And that brings us to the real question, the one no chart or headline ever answers. Who wrote the script for America's economy, and why does it keep leading us back to the same crash? Two men, born into different worlds, carrying different fears, would go on to shape the financial destiny of a nation they never ruled. On one side stood John Maynard Keynes, a brilliant British economist who believed markets could freeze not because of math, but because of emotion. When panic takes over, he argued, people stop spending, businesses stop hiring, and the entire engine of prosperity stalls. To Keynes, the solution was clear. The government had to step in, inject confidence, and restart the flow of money. He called it animal spirits, the unpredictable psychology that drives booms, busts, and everything in between. On the other side was Friedrich Hayek, a quiet refugee from a collapsing empire who saw danger not in fear, but in power. To him, every time a government tried to fix the economy, it distorted the signals that ordinary people relied on. Cheap credit didn't create prosperity, it created illusions. Illusions that led to speculation, bubbles, and painful corrections. Hayek believed only real savings, real prices, and real discipline could anchor a society. Anything else risked building prosperity on sand. What neither man could have predicted is that the United States would spend the next century pulled between these two visions, one urging Washington to act, the other warning Washington to step back. And every crisis, every rescue, every recovery you've lived through has been shaped by that tension. Because the truth is simple. America's economy is a story of choosing, abandoning, and returning to these two men over and over again. When the economy collapsed in the early 1930s, America didn't just slow down, it froze. Banks failed, families lined up for bread, entire cities fell silent as fear spread faster than any market signal. It was here, in the darkest chapter of modern finance, that John Maynard Keynes stepped onto the stage with an idea that would rewrite the role of government. Markets weren't healing themselves. Confidence wasn't returning. And the longer Washington waited, the deeper the spiral became. Keynes argued that in moments like this, the government had to do something radical. Spend, not cautiously, not symbolically, but at a scale big enough to jolt the nation awake. So America tried it. Through Roosevelt's New Deal, money flowed into roads, bridges, dams, wages, turning public spending into the heartbeat of recovery. For the first time, the government wasn't a referee in the economy, it became the economy. And when the threat of global war arrived, the theory was pushed even further. World War II forced unprecedented production, hiring, investment, proof to many that Keynes had been right all along. Massive spending didn't just end the Depression, It powered an American boom that would define the century. But beneath the celebration, a question lingered, one that no one had the courage to ask yet. If spending could save the nation in crisis, what would happen when spending went too far? But the victory of Keynes wouldn't last forever. By the 1970s, America found itself in a crisis that broke every rule economists believed in. Prices were rising, yet the economy wasn't growing. Unemployment climbed, factories slowed, and the dollar weakened. It was a nightmare no textbook had prepared the nation for: stagflation. And suddenly, the very tool that had saved America in the 1930s, government spending, seemed to make things worse. The more Washington tried to stimulate the economy, the more inflation tightened its grip. This was the moment Friedrich Hayek had warned about. Cheap money, artificial boosts, constant intervention. He argued these things would distort the system until reality snapped back violently. And snap it did. By the end of the decade, trust in Keynesian strategy was falling apart. Something had to change. Then came a drastic move that stunned the country. Paul Volcker, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, unleashed the now legendary Volcker shock, forcing interest rates to levels Americans had never seen. Painful, unpopular, even brutal, but effective. Inflation broke. Faith in hands-off discipline returned. And for the first time in decades, Hayek's voice wasn't just an academic warning, it was the guiding light out of chaos. Yet this victory came with a new question, one just as dangerous as the last. If pain could fix the economy, how much pain could America tolerate the next time things fell apart? But the calm that followed the Volcker era wouldn't last forever. By 2008, America faced a new kind of disaster. One built quietly over years of easy credit, soaring home prices, and loans that should never have been made. When the housing bubble burst, it didn't just take down a few banks, it shook the foundation of the global financial system. Markets plunged, retirement accounts evaporated, and Americans watched in disbelief as century-old institutions collapsed overnight. Fear returned, raw, familiar, overwhelming. And once again, the playbook that had worked in the past came rushing back. The government stepped in with massive bailouts. The Federal Reserve slashed interest rates to nearly zero, launching the era of ZIRP. Money flooded into the system, not through traditional growth, but through emergency measures designed to keep it from falling apart. America learned a new phrase, too big to fail. To many, this looked like Keynesianism reborn. When private markets froze, Washington became the lender, the backstop, the stabilizer, exactly what Keynes had argued decades earlier. And just like the 1930s, the intervention worked. The system survived. The crash was contained. But beneath that relief was a deeper unease. Saving the economy required bending rules that were never meant to bend, and creating safety nets that some feared would encourage even bigger risks next time. Because if the government could rescue everything, banks, insurers, automakers, what would stop the next crisis from growing even larger? And more importantly, what would happen when the bill for all this finally came due? And then came the shock no one saw coming. In 2020, the world shut down almost overnight. Businesses closed, millions lost their jobs, and the American economy entered freefall at a speed unseen in modern history. Fear wasn't creeping in, it was crashing through the front door. And in that moment of paralyzing uncertainty, Washington reached for the most powerful tool it had, spending. But this time, not in billions, in trillions. Stimulus checks went out. Rescue packages multiplied. The Federal Reserve opened floodgates of liquidity unlike anything in its century-long existence. Interest rates were cut to near zero again, and money poured into households, businesses, banks, and markets all at once. To many, it felt like Keynes reborn, only louder, faster, and bigger than ever before. And just like in the 1930s, the strategy worked, at least at first. Markets stabilized, jobs returned, the economy snapped back with a force that surprised even the experts. But by 2021, the side effects were impossible to ignore. Prices surged, housing costs exploded, the dollar weakened, and Americans felt something they hadn't felt in decades: an inflation that marched into every corner of daily life. Gas, groceries, rent, everything cost more, much more. It was as if Keynes had saved the patient, but in the rush to stop the bleeding, the country had overdosed on the cure. And this time, the warning Hayek once gave felt sharper than ever. When you pour that much money into an already fragile system, the bill always arrives, usually at the worst possible moment. Now, the question America faced was no longer whether stimulus worked, but whether the nation had pushed it beyond its breaking point. The deeper you look into America's economic history, the more one truth rises to the surface. This debate refuses to die because human behavior refuses to change. Hayek warned that when money becomes too cheap, it creates an illusion of prosperity. People take bigger risks, companies chase growth they haven't earned, and markets drift away from reality. We saw it in the dot-com surge, in overheated housing markets, and even in the wild spikes of 2021. It always feels good on the way up, until the correction hits, fast and unforgiving. That's the world Hayek feared: malinvestment disguised as progress. But the other force is just as powerful. When fear takes hold, real, overwhelming fear, Keynes saw how quickly an economy can seize. People stop spending, hiring freezes. Markets don't slow, they lock. That's what happened in 1930, again in 2008, and once more during the shock of 2020. Panic outruns policy. Confidence evaporates before logic can intervene. In those moments, government action isn't theoretical. It's the only thing standing between order and collapse. Keynes called these emotional shocks the animal spirits of the market. And that's why this argument persists. Because America is never fighting a single economic battle. It's fighting two at once: fear and discipline. Lean too far toward fear, and the country freezes. Lean too far toward discipline, and it breaks under the weight of its own corrections. Every crisis, every recovery, every generation sits somewhere between those two forces. Understanding this tension is crucial, because it's this tug-of-war that sets the stage for the deeper consequences waiting beneath every boom and bust. And those consequences are where our story turns next. When you step back and look across the century, a sobering pattern emerges. After each crisis, government doesn't return to its previous size, it expands. The New Deal reshaped federal power. The 2008 crash pulled the Federal Reserve deeper into the financial system. And the shocks of 2020 pushed Washington into businesses, households, and markets at a scale unseen in American history. Meanwhile, markets themselves have changed. They don't simply react to fundamentals, they react to the Federal Reserve. Entire sectors now rise and fall on interest rate signals. Investors wait for Fed minutes the way previous generations waited for earnings reports. This dependency didn't happen overnight. It grew each time the system needed rescuing. And with every rescue, bubbles inflated faster. Housing in 2006, tech in 2021, and pockets of speculation fueled by money that was never meant to stay this cheap, this long. For ordinary Americans, the consequences feel personal. Savings lose purchasing power. Retirement plans look less certain. A single downturn can erase years of progress. A single rate hike can shift the cost of a home, a car, or a family's future. Stability, once the goal, has quietly become another layer of risk. Because beneath all the charts and policies lies a hard truth. Every rescue breeds the next disaster. Each intervention solves one crisis while planting the seeds of another. And to understand the full weight of that reality, we must confront the question that now defines America's economic future, one that leads us directly into the next chapter. So after a century of booms, busts, rescues, and resets, who was right? The truth is more complicated than choosing sides. Keynes understood something deeply human, that fear can shut down an economy faster than any statistic. When panic hits, when people stop spending, when businesses retreat, his ideas have saved America from sliding into the abyss more than once. But Hayek saw a different danger, one that doesn't appear overnight. He warned that the long-term cost of constant intervention, easy money, endless stimulus, expanding government, would eventually distort the very foundation of the economy. And today we can see both forces at work. The rapid recovery after 2008 and 2020 reflects Keynes's insight. The rising debt, inflated asset prices, and fragile savings reflect Hayek's. The U.S. economy wasn't built by choosing one vision. It was built by the collision between them, between fear and discipline, between immediate rescue and long-term consequence. And that collision is exactly what leads us to the final, unavoidable question, the one that decides how every American will navigate the years ahead. Let's step into the payoff. After everything we've uncovered, every crisis, every rescue, every painful reset, the lesson becomes impossible to ignore. Big spending can save the nation in moments of panic. It can restart demand, restore confidence, and keep people working. But it also carries a shadow. The more we spend to fix today, the more we borrow from tomorrow. And cheap credit, as tempting as it feels in the moment, builds booms that look unstoppable, right up until the day they collapse. That pattern isn't an accident, it's the design. For anyone investing in America's future, understanding this cycle isn't optional, it's essential. Markets rise on stimulus, then fall on consequences. They surge when fear fades, then contract when reality catches up. The investors who thrive aren't the ones predicting every twist. They're the ones who recognize where we are in the rhythm of fear and discipline, and position themselves before the swing becomes obvious. Because the truth is, America never truly chose between Keynes and Hayek. It chose to live in the space between them, rescuing itself when panic takes over, then rediscovering discipline when the cost of rescue becomes too heavy to ignore. That tension isn't a flaw in the system, it is the system. And to understand where this cycle is heading next, we need to step into a story that shaped global finance long before Keynes or Hayek ever wrote a word. A story wrapped in myth, power, secrecy, and influence. Next time, we examine the Rothschild dynasty and uncover the truth behind the world's most mysterious banking empire.